That bench needs to go. HOA rules are rules.
It's a memorial for my husband.
The memorial bench I built for my late husband sat in our front yard for exactly 42 days before Karen took a sledgehammer to it. She thought destroying it at 6 a.m. would teach me a lesson about following HOA rules. What she didn't expect was my Ring camera capturing every swing in crystal clear HD, or that vandalism of memorial property carries serious criminal charges in our state. That $200 bench she destroyed ended up costing her $3,500 in fines, restitution, and legal fees, plus a criminal record and a very public arrest. I'm Margaret, a 67-year-old retired elementary school teacher. After my husband David passed from cancer 2 years ago, I struggled to find meaning in our too-quiet house. David and I had spent 38 years together in our little HOA community outside Charlotte, North Carolina. Every corner held memories. David had always talked about building a garden bench, somewhere to sit and watch the birds, he'd say. We never got around to it during the chaos of his treatment. So 6 months after his passing, I decided to build it myself. It was beautiful. Cedar wood, with a small brass plaque reading, "In memory of David Chen, he loved watching the birds." I placed it in our front yard beneath the oak tree where David used to drink his morning coffee. Neighbors stopped by to share memories and tell me how lovely it was. For the first time since losing him, I felt a small measure of peace. Then Karen moved in next door. Karen was 50-something, recently divorced, and seemed determined to make the HOA her entire personality. Within a week of moving in, she'd joined the board. Within a month, she was sending violation notices to half the street. I met her on a Tuesday afternoon when she appeared at my door holding a clipboard. "That bench needs to go," she said, not even introducing herself. "It's not on the approved structures list." My stomach dropped. It's a memorial for my late husband. I understand, but rules are rules. You'll need to submit it for architectural approval or remove it within 14 days. The coldness in her voice made my hands shake. This wasn't going to be reasonable. I could feel it. I had no idea just how unreasonable it would become. I submitted the required application the next day, including photos, dimensions, and an explanation of the memorial's significance. The HOA Architectural Committee consisted of 5 people, including Karen. 3 weeks later, the rejection letter arrived. Unapproved structure in violation of community aesthetic standards. I attended the next board meeting to appeal. 4 neighbors came with me to speak in support of the bench. Tom and Linda from across the street. The Johnsons who'd known David for 20 years. Even quiet Mr. Peterson spoke up. "That bench is beautiful and meaningful," Linda said. "It hurts absolutely no one." Karen sat at the head table, her expression unmoved. "We can't make exceptions. If we allow one unapproved structure, where does it end?" "This isn't a structure, it's a memorial," I said, my voice cracking despite my efforts to stay composed. "The rules don't differentiate," Karen replied flatly. "You have 30 days to remove it, or we'll fine you $50 per day." The vote was 3-2 in Karen's favor. I later learned she'd pressured the other board members, threatening to make their lives difficult if they didn't support her. I consulted a lawyer who said fighting the HOA would cost thousands with no guarantee of winning. I was a retired teacher on a fixed income. I couldn't afford a legal battle. The fines started accumulating. $50 a day. I couldn't afford that either, but I couldn't bring myself to destroy the one thing that made me feel connected to David. Karen's harassment escalated. She'd walk past my house and take photos of the bench, making sure I saw her. She sent letters threatening legal action. She told neighbors I was driving down property values with my illegal structure. "She asked me to sign a petition against you," Tom told me one afternoon, angry on my behalf. I told her where she could stick her petition. The stress was overwhelming. I wasn't sleeping. My blood pressure medication had to be increased. My daughter begged me to just remove the bench, to protect my health, but the thought of dismantling David's memorial with my own hands felt impossible. After 6 weeks of fines, I owed the HOA $2,100. I'd started taking money from my savings, money I'd set aside for emergencies, to pay for Karen's crusade against a memorial bench. I was sitting beside that bench one evening, crying and talking to David like I sometimes did, when I made a decision. I'd remove it that weekend. Karen didn't even give me the chance. That Saturday morning, I woke at 6:15 a.m. to a sound I couldn't immediately place. A rhythmic thudding, wood splintering. I looked out my bedroom window and froze. Karen stood in my front yard, wearing workout clothes and gardening gloves, swinging a sledgehammer into David's bench. She'd already destroyed one armrest. As I watched in horror, she brought the hammer down again, splitting the seat board. I ran outside in my bathrobe, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might collapse. "What are you doing?" I screamed. She paused, barely winded, and looked at me with cold satisfaction. "You refuse to remove it. I'm doing it for you. HOA rules allow us to remove non-compliant structures at owner's expense. That's not, you can't just," I couldn't form words. Tears streamed down my face as I stared at the destroyed bench, the brass plaque dented, wood splintered across my lawn. "Consider this a lesson," Karen said, picking up a broken piece. "Maybe next time you'll follow the rules." She walked back to her house, leaving the sledgehammer in my yard like a signature. Something broke inside me in that moment. Not sadness anymore. Pure, crystallized rage. She'd just made the worst mistake of her life. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, but not from grief. From adrenaline. I opened my Ring doorbell app, the camera I'd installed after David passed, mostly to see when packages arrived. The footage was perfect. Crystal clear HD video of Karen entering my property at 6:03 a.m., retrieving a sledgehammer she'd apparently stashed behind my bushes the night before, and systematically destroying the bench over 4 minutes. Every swing captured. Her face clearly visible. I downloaded the video and called my daughter. "Mom, what's wrong?" Jessica asked, alarmed by my voice. After I explained, there was a long silence. Then, "Mom, that's not an HOA violation. That's a crime. She destroyed your property. That's criminal vandalism." I'd been so conditioned to think of this as an HOA matter, I hadn't even considered that. Jessica helped me research. North Carolina law was clear: willful damage to property valued over $200 was a Class 1 misdemeanor. Memorial vandalism carried additional penalties. This wasn't a civil matter, it was criminal. I called the police non-emergency line. The dispatcher took my report and sent an officer within an hour. Officer Williams was in his 40s, professional and thorough. He watched the Ring footage 3 times, his jaw tightening. "Ma'am, this is clear-cut vandalism," he said. "I'll need a copy of this video and a statement from you." "How much was the bench worth?" I showed him the receipts for materials, $247. Plus the brass plaque, $86. Total, $333, well over the threshold. "And this was a memorial for your late husband?" His voice softened. "Yes." He shook his head, disgusted. "I'll file this report today. The detective division will follow up, but with this video evidence, I'd expect charges to be filed." I also called my insurance company. The adjuster confirmed the vandalism was covered and that they'd pursue Karen for reimbursement. For the first time in 2 months, I felt something other than helplessness. I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was still justice in the world. The detective called me Monday afternoon. "Mrs. Chen, we've reviewed the evidence. We'll be pressing charges for misdemeanor vandalism and trespassing. Given the memorial nature of the property, the DA's office is taking this seriously. What happens now? I asked. A warrant will be issued. Is the suspect likely to be home tomorrow morning? The next morning, I was drinking coffee when I saw 2 police cars pull up to Karen's house. My heart raced. Through my window, I watched Officer Williams and another officer approach her door. Karen answered in her bathrobe, her expression shifting from annoyed to shocked as Officer Williams spoke. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw him gesture to turn around. Saw the handcuffs. She was being arrested. Several neighbors had come outside, drawn by the police presence. Tom stood on his lawn, watching. The Johnsons were on their porch. Everyone saw as Karen, in handcuffs, was placed in the back of a police cruiser. Her face was bright red, whether from shame or anger I couldn't tell. The arrest made the neighborhood Facebook page within an hour. By that evening, a local news station had picked it up, HOA board member arrested for vandalizing widow's memorial bench. The ring footage went viral after I shared it with the reporter. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive of me and scathing toward Karen. Imagine being so heartless. HOA tyrants need to be held accountable. I hope they throw the book at her. Karen's lawyer tried to negotiate, but the DA's office wasn't interested in dropping charges. The evidence was too clear, and the public attention made it a matter of principle. The court date arrived 6 weeks later. I attended, wearing David's favorite blue scarf. Karen pleaded guilty as part of a deal. The judge was not sympathetic. Mrs. Patterson, you destroyed a memorial to a deceased person over an HOA dispute. That shows a stunning lack of judgment and basic human decency. Her sentence, $1,500 fine, $833 restitution to me, materials plus emotional damages, 40 hours community service, and a criminal record. She left the courthouse without looking at me once. Karen resigned from the HOA board the day after her sentencing. Her resignation letter was 1 sentence long, submitted by her attorney. The new board president, Tom, called me personally. Margaret, on behalf of the HOA, I'm deeply sorry. We've voted to not only approve your bench but to waive all the fines Karen imposed. That should never have happened. The check for $833 arrived within 2 weeks. My insurance covered the rest. I used the money to rebuild the bench, this time with even better materials. I added a second plaque, Rebuilt 2024, Love Cannot Be Destroyed. Neighbors helped with the installation. Linda brought flowers to plant around it. The Johnsons helped stain the wood. Even Mr. Peterson, who rarely spoke to anyone, helped dig the foundation holes. Karen put her house on the market 3 months later. Tom told me the criminal record had cost her a job opportunity, and her husband had left her shortly after the arrest. I can't say I felt sorry for her. The new bench sits in the same spot under the oak tree. I have my morning coffee there now, just like David used to. Sometimes neighbors join me, and we talk about anything and everything. The brass plaques catch the morning sun, and birds gather in the branches above. David would have loved it. Looking back, I wish I'd called the police the first time Karen harassed me about the bench. I'd been so conditioned to think of this as an HOA issue that I didn't recognize criminal behavior when it happened on my own front lawn. But maybe things worked out the way they needed to. Karen faced real consequences. The neighborhood learned that HOA rules don't override basic human decency or the law. And I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I could stand up for David's memory and for myself. The bench isn't just a memorial anymore. It's a reminder that some things are worth fighting for. If you enjoyed this story of justice served, I'd love if you'd subscribe for more tales of people standing up to bullies and winning. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting someone face the consequences of their own actions. And building something beautiful in spite of them.